Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Poland insists the EU's €90 billion loan package for Ukraine will go ahead, despite Hungary's threat to veto it over the Druzhba pipeline dispute. Brussels says it will deliver the funds one way or another, raising questions about how far the bloc can bypass obstruction. Our guest is Tomasz Włostowski, managing partner at EU Strategies. Tomasz, welcome back. Good to see you.
Likewise. Good evening.
Good evening. So, we've got €90 billion that the EU has approved to give to Ukraine, but Hungary, or I'd say almost as one would expect, is threatening to veto it. Where do things stand at the moment?
Well, there is an impasse, I think, and there's still a little bit of an initial shock that hasn't fully worn off. I think there was an assumption that the sort of disagreement over the Druzhba pipeline would get resolved before the anniversary of the fourth anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion on Ukraine. There was an assumption that all would be resolved by then, and I think most people in Brussels were taken aback and shocked that this was not the case. Now the shock is starting to wear off a bit, and a search for solution is on the way. As you've already mentioned, the highest representatives of EU institutions, so that's both Ursula von der Leyen for the Commission as well as Antonio Costa for the European Council, claim that the money will be delivered one way or another, and that they have a solution or that they're working on a solution. But truth be told, there is no clear solution anywhere in sight, in my view.
Right. Well, let's start with the Druzhba pipeline. So this is a pipeline which conveys Russian gas and oil into Hungary and Slovakia and passes through Ukraine. That has been disrupted. Ukraine says that's because Russia has destroyed energy infrastructure. Hungary is accusing Ukraine of blocking it on purpose. What's really happening, in your opinion?
Well, this is the first problem with the situation we're in, is that nobody knows really. Nobody knows really what the facts are on the ground. As you've pointed out, Ukrainians claim that the Russians bombed the pipeline essentially, and it's destroyed. The Hungarians on the other side claim, well, they tell two different stories. One story is that the pipeline wasn't actually attacked, that there was an explosion close to the pipeline, and the Ukrainians are using that as an excuse to stop the oil flow. That's one version. And the other version is that, okay, maybe the Russians bombed the pipeline, but it's very easy to repair. No major damage has been done. If you wanted to, you could repair it. So there is no clarity on what exactly the status quo is in terms of the infrastructure. And this actually is one direction in which the talks behind the scenes are ongoing at the moment, which is Hungary is allegedly, according to the press, proposing this option. Well, let's have a fact-finding mission into Ukraine. Let's go and inspect exactly what happened there, and then if alleged to press reports, if the mission confirms that the pipeline has been destroyed, okay, we accept it. But again, we know that that's not fully the case, because Hungary is already claiming that Ukraine should repair the pipeline. So we already know that fact-finding mission alone would not resolve the issue.
Right. And I would suggest also that this is not the first time that Hungary has vetoed or attempted to prevent aid or loans going to Ukraine. So perhaps this is just a leverage that it happens to find convenient at the moment. Now, Foreign Minister Sikorski suggested that perhaps any decisions, any EU decisions relating to Russia should not include necessarily Hungary and perhaps even Slovakia in the vote. What do you think? What do you think of that suggestion?
Well, the idea maybe is good. I'm not going to dispute the idea, but the facts and the law, more importantly, the law is you need unanimity to adopt council decisions under the European Common Foreign Security Policy. So unless you exclude Hungary from the vote, and that's the whole discussion about the rule of law and Article 7, unless you're ready to go down that path, you need unanimity for sanctions. Now, here, the issue is a bit different. It's related, of course, but that's about amending the European multi-annual financial framework, because essentially, to make a very complicated story short, to do this loan, you need to amend the existing rules for the EU multi-annual budget, and to do that, again, under the treaties, you need unanimity. So there's no way to do this without Hungary unless you exclude Hungary's vote from the Council, and nobody has any appetite for that, as disappointed and angry with Hungary as they may be.
Well, Ursula von der Leyen says, look, we're going to get the money to Ukraine one way or another. What alternatives does she have?
Well, there's a couple of alternatives, I think. The first one is, let's give Orban what he wants. If he wants, to repair the pipeline, let's just repair the pipeline and get on with it. That's option one. Option number two is, and this is, I think, a very plausible path forward, which is, this is not really about the oil and it's not about the Druzhba pipeline, it's about something else. Probably the Commission knows what this is really about. The main sort of candidate for a solution is the ongoing Secure Action for Europe program, which is the SAFE program, which basically allows EU member states to borrow money at preferred rates for defense projects. Incidentally, most of the projects have been approved, but there are 3 countries whose projects have not been yet approved, and one of those countries is Hungary. It's waiting for 16 billion from the Commission. So, one of the interpretations of what's going on is that Orban is basically signaling, I want my money, give me my money, and if you give me my money, I'm going to let this go forward. So those are two ways of making Orban happy. And then, there are, of course, different variations of trying to go around the veto, some innovative articles from the European treaties, or maybe using the Russian frozen assets. So let's go back to that story again. But I think they're unlikely to yield a result. There's also this idea, let's keep in mind, there are elections in Hungary in a month from now. And this issue obviously is also in the background. But essentially, I think where we're going is there's going to be a protracted standoff, and sooner or later there's going to be a fudgy solution that makes everybody sort of happy and everybody unhappy at the same time.
Right, but in the meantime, of course, Ukraine is having to do without the funding and the weaponry that funding can produce. I mean, it seems, what you just laid out, that Hungary demands something in exchange for basically towing the party line. But it's always been like that, in some ways quite similar to Turkey and NATO. Because Turkey has a habit of vetoing NATO decisions in the same way. Surely there must come a time when, the EU has to say to Hungary, listen, we are a bloc, and that should mean something. It's not something that we can continually exchange favours on. Do you see any alternative apart from a change in government in Hungary?
Ashim, no, I think you're too optimistic. I think if you or anybody expects some major confrontation with Orban, that is not going to happen, and that's for a number of reasons. But the main reason is this is not how EU institutions work. To take any decision in Brussels, you need 140 people to agree on the solution. And basically, that's never going to happen. And what that means in practice is that the solutions are always sort of the lowest common denominator, and that's usually sort of a very thoughtful, non-aggressive, respectful way out. But what makes this situation different is I think both Ukraine and Hungary, well, not Hungary, but Orban are against the clock. Ukrainian money is running out in April, but Orban has an election, early April. And I think there is an understanding in Brussels that if we want Orban to basically let this loan go forward, whatever solution we come up with, he needs to be able to portray this as a win for Hungary. So maybe we're going to have some investigation into the pipeline. Maybe we're going to make some vague promises that are not really binding for anybody, that Ukraine is going to fix the pipeline, but the wording is going to be non-binding and so on. So I think we're looking for something that Orban, there's an understanding that Orban needs a win and that this confrontation is an election-driven exercise.
Right, okay. Now, in your opinion, because of course many think that he's having his strings pulled by Putin, is that what's happening, or is he simply in alignment with Putin but independent?
I don't think Putin really explains what's happening, because for 4 years Hungary could have blocked every single sanctions decision, and they never did. So if Putin really was pulling the strings, we wouldn't be with the sanctions package where we are today. So that's one. One thing we haven't touched on, and it's also an important thing to keep in mind, is that when Secretary of State Marco Rubio came to Europe just a week or 2 weeks ago, he came for the Munich Security Conference, and from there he went to Bratislava in Slovakia and to Budapest in Hungary. And it just so happens that those two countries he visited blocked the 20th sanctions package, and they blocked the loan. So, if we're looking for intervention, one possible explanation, I'm not saying this is it, but it's something to keep in mind, is that, there might be an American aspect in this whole story as well, because as we know, President Trump is trying to basically, to find some type of a deal between Russia and Ukraine, and Ukrainian resistance to his efforts is a factor that plays sort of in the background here. So if you really wanted to push Ukraine to agree to a deal, probably cutting off money and cutting off sanctions is one way to do it. I'm just flagging that's also one of the things in the mix that Brussels is considering here.
Right, yes, well, as you say, lots of moving parts, not quite clear which ones carry more weight. Tomasz Włostowski, as always, thank you so much for sharing your analysis with our audience, and have a good evening.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Bye. And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away, lots more coming up. Goodbye.